Rush Limbaugh. Before we get to Rush Limbaugh, Governor Jeb Bush jokingly talks about blaming his brother, George W. Bush, for problems that are currently taking place, says it should stop. Let's take a listen to what he said.
I was on the plane coming up to Washington yesterday, and I heard someone complaining that their child's acne was because of George Bush. And, of course, last week the Olympics didn't come to Chicago. That was my brother's fault. And at some point, people are going to have to put on their big boy pants and assume responsibility for the great challenges and opportunities our country has. And I don't know how much longer responsible leaders in Congress can continue to say these things.
So, of course, Jeb Bush preaching to a friendly crowd on Fox and Friends there. There are some legitimate criticisms now that can be attributed to George W. Bush, right? Wars, the economic downturn were both really precipitated when George W. Bush was the president. They can't be undone in a few months. We can still talk about George W. Bush. We can still talk about, for some things, Bill Clinton, right? I mean, when we talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a lot of what's going on now dates back to decisions made by Bill Clinton. It's not all his fault, so on and so forth, but we can still talk about that. But there is a limit to this, and I can't imagine George W. Bush is going to be indefinitely blamed for everything, but we need to be able to talk about George Bush without conservatives and Republicans and George W. Bush's brother saying, hey, how long are you going to blame Georgie? Because he did get us into these two wars. He did preside over a significant economic downturn. So I think there is legitimacy to that, and there's legitimacy to going even further back than George W. Bush.
Right. But I think it'll be a long time before people stop blaming, and even longer before people stop talking about the Bush administration. Probably the most controversial and still debated administrations
in recent years, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Rush Limbaugh has been thinking about buying into an NFL football team, and there's a lot of people that don't like this. The St. Louis Rams. Commissioner Roger Goodell said on Tuesday that it would be inappropriate for the owner of an NFL franchise to make the sort of statements attributed in the past to conservative talk radio show host Rush Limbaugh. I've said many times before, we're all held to a high standard here, and I think divisive comments are not what the NFL is all about. I would not want to see those comments coming from people who are in a responsible position in the NFL. Absolutely not. Limbaugh has acknowledged being part of a group that's bidding for the St. Louis Rams. Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay says he would not vote in favor of approving Limbaugh as owner, and I think all the owners get a vote when there's an ownership change, is what it sounds like.
I'm actually not sure, but it sounds like it, yeah.
I would not be in favor of voting for him, Irsay said. I could ask Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, Dwight Freeney, and consult with them, but there have been comments that have been made that have been inappropriate, incendiary, and insensitive. It's bigger than football. We have to watch the words that we say. Sometimes privileges in life do get lost. I wouldn't feel comfortable. Reverend Al Sharpton, a racist in his own right, reportedly sent a letter to Goodell on Monday urging the NFL to reject Limbaugh's ownership bid. Jesse Jackson, another racist in his own right, also expressed public opposition to Limbaugh's bid. Several NFL players have said that they would not play for a team owned by Rush Limbaugh. So a lot of the controversy with Rush is that in 2003, he resigned from ESPN after making controversial comments about Donovan McNabb, the African-American quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Limbaugh said on the network studio show that the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. There's a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of his team that he didn't deserve. The defense carried the team. So these were considered racist comments to some extent. I'd rather Rush not be involved with any team personally, but it does seem hypocritical in the sense that since when has the NFL ever had a problem with felons and thugs being on the field? Is it that much worse to have a racist in the owner's box? And I know it's not a good argument. It's not a good argument to defend Rush Limbaugh's comments, but Michael Vick is back playing in the NFL. Yes, he served his time, but there's many cases where if as an attorney you commit certain crimes, you're never allowed to practice as an attorney again. What's the logic? Is it not hypocritical for Rush Limbaugh? There's people that have done stuff worse than Rush Limbaugh making some racist comments, right?
I suppose, and that's fair, but there's there's violations and terms of service or whatever. People get fined. People get well, in Vic's case, jail time. He got tried.
In a sense, Michael Vick has more made up for the crime he committed. Rush Limbaugh didn't commit any crime. I don't know. I wouldn't like Rush involved. I wouldn't want to play for Rush.
I wouldn't want to play on a team that Michael Vick was quarterbacking for, and I wouldn't want to play for a team that Rush Limbaugh owned.
Fair enough. I agree with you. Given that Michael Vick is back, given that there doesn't seem to be that big of a problem with felons and thugs getting back on the field, it seems somewhat hypocritical because racist comments, as bad as they are, aren't worse than the crimes that have been committed in many cases. I'd need more of an explanation on this.
Yeah, you make a good point. But I'm not a fan of Rush, and
you don't want to
not
see
that
him
I'm a
owning it.
Rams fan, but
Sure.
I just don't think it would be healthy for the NFL at all.
Let me mention again, WUDR, University of Dayton Radio, welcome carrying Midweek Politics, LCTV in Newcastle, Maine, and Muskego Public Access Group in Muskego, Wisconsin, carrying Midweek Politics TV. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with plenty more. I'm David Pakman. MidweekPolitics.com is the website.